Welcome to the Retro Sports Gaming Monthly for November 2017. I'm here with my brother, Lumberjack Cracks. Hey. We got our co-hosts, TroyGBLAN, Nick the Fish.
Call me Googleata today.
Oh, he's got Googliata, Tom Googliata, and our special guest writing the NBA Jam book, Reyan.
Yes. Nice to meet you guys. I'm excited, man.
And Reyan, what players do you have on your NBA Jam shirt?
All right. Oh, let me try to adjust this. Here we go. We got Stockton and Malone. So this is a whole series that Homage, we're based out of Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from. They've put out. So I've got the Homage Stockton Malone shirt on right now. I've got a O'Neal and Hardaway shirt somewhere in my basement, sitting in a bag. It's a medium. Still working on getting down to a medium. This one's a large. All they had left was the medium. I've got a Kemp and Payton one too. So Stockton Malone for tonight. My lucky charm.
I've been coveting those. I've seen that site. I've been coveting those, but they don't have a large with extra small armholes for me. So I'm waiting on that.
Yeah. Any day now. Any day now. Yeah.
O'Neal and Hardaway, wasn't that the team that never was in an NBA Jam game, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, they were in a very early version of the game, and then Shaq was taken out when something happened with his contract. So I think it's similar to what happened with Michael Jordan and with Charles Barkley. I think Barkley was in an early edition, then he was out too.
Yes.
Yeah, so there was a whole thing over there. But in retrospect, everybody thinks that, oh yeah, you know, O'Neal was there the whole time, Barkley was there the whole time, and sometimes some people even think that Jordan was there the whole time, even though he wasn't there to begin with.
Yeah, he wasn't there. He wasn't in the games at all.
He might have been in a really, really early version of the game. He might have been there for a hot second, but that would have been way back.
I have quite a few NBA Jam and NBA Jam TE games from our attorneys, and I have ones I write Barkley on them if it's Barkley in there or Thunder Dan Marley, because they're split on some of them.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a difference going from Barkley to Dan Marley, I must say.
Definitely not a lateral move. Yeah, that's a pretty big change. Yeah.
Not that Dan Marley's bad or anything. It's just, you know, Barkley is one of the best players in the game if he's there.
Right. I mean, Barkley's Barkley. That's the thing. Barkley is Barkley. I mean, yeah. So.
All right. Go ahead, Reyan.
Oh, I was going to say is that Barkley and Jordan were the two original players in the video that Midway made to pitch the game to the NBA in the first place. When they hadn't gotten the license, they put Barkley and Jordan on the screen as a demo, and then neither of them ended up in the final game, or rather that people remember. So that's how history works sometimes.
Yeah, I have seen that video before. I thought it was just all Jordans, but maybe it was Jordan and Barkley.
Yeah. It's the same character. It's just Jordan and Barkley, just to give the NBA the idea of, oh, wow, look at this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that before. All right, so Reyan, we got a bunch of questions for you here tonight.
I'm ready for it. Give it to me. Bring it on.
Before we get started with the questions, we just want to know, what is your NBA Jam story? When did you start playing it? How much have you played it in your lifetime?
Absolutely, yeah. So I have a very unusual story, which is what I think makes me, like, my connection to writing this book extra special. So I grew up, so I'm American born, I was born in Dallas. Excuse me, I was born in Dallas, but I grew up in Pakistan. And when I was growing up in Pakistan, we did not have access to the NBA on television. So this is the 90s, pre-internet. And I really wanted to be connected to the league in some way. So I first saw, actually, let me pull up something over here. I actually have an NBA Jam ad on the back of a magazine. This was the very first way I ever heard of the NBA. And I thought this looked so cool. I wanted to follow the NBA in some form. Now,
what's the magazine? What's the front?
Yeah, what's the front? This is steel. Check this out. Check this puppy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Right. Ooh, yeah. And you know what? I've got alternates over here with the same ad. Yeah. So this thing was everywhere back in '95 or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I grew up in Pakistan, and I saw that ad on a comic book cover. That's when I first learned about the NBA. And then I started playing a lot of NBA Jam to try to connect myself to the league. And then I would follow the league through bits and pieces. So this is pre-internet, of course, like I was saying. So I would have to, my mom, who lived in the States, would send me basketball cards. I would occasionally get the VHS tape, things like that. So yeah, so NBA Jam was my way to connect to the league. And in some ways, I thought that's what basketball was. You know, I didn't really think about fouls because there aren't any fouls in NBA Jam. So when I thought of basketball, professional basketball, I was like, fouls? What? Fouls are Yeah.
So when you were getting VHS, were they like the ones where like Clyde Drexler dunked into a really bad hip hop song?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
That was called Jam Session.
Yes.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Now, if you guys want to, now later on in the interview, if you want to take a break or anything, I can go downstairs and pull out this massive box of NBA VHS tapes that I bought on eBay on an impulse buy several years ago.
Oh, nice.
I got them all. Yeah. But yeah, so I was playing on not the Sega Genesis, but the Sega Mega Drive, which is what it is over in Pakistan. So it was really interesting. That was the way I connected to the game. Both the game of basketball and the game of NBA Jam was growing up over there. And then, I really loved Mortal Kombat as a kid. And that was another Midway.
Oh, that's my jam.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was a lot of overlap in terms of the people that were working at Midway at that time. I mean, they were working side by side. Mortal Kombat came out, then NBA Jam came out, just a few months apart. So I had a lot of personal connection over there. I actually used to work for a Mortal Kombat website when I was a kid, too. I was in Pakistan writing for a Mortal Kombat website underneath the name Pain Game. So I was super cool, guys. I was super cool. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I played the game for years. And then when I got older, I found it, I finally got to play an arcade form. I never played the arcade version as a kid because they didn't have it over there. But now I can play it all the time. And it's definitely one of those things where in my head, the Sega Genesis version and the arcade version are almost the same thing when I was a kid. But now when you look at it, you're like, that isn't the same thing at all. Those are totally different.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I kind of like had the opposite experience. What hooked me is my mom would take me and my sister to a community college to do some classes during the summer. And community college must have been cool back then because in their lounge, they had a brand spanking new NBA Jam cabinet.
Oh, boy.
She gave me maybe like 50 cents to play one quarter, popped it in, picked the Magic, Shaq and Scott Skiles. And it was the first game where I saw, like, you could actually see the players' faces. And I was like blown away. I was only like 6 years old at the time. And that's what got me hooked.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's such a special thing. I mean, I think we take it for granted now, seeing faces in the game or having a game where you can actually play as players and you know that you're playing as a real player. I mean, NBA Jam very much innovated a lot of that.
Yeah, for my NBA Jam initial experience, we went to either Disneyland or Disney World as a kid. What year it came out? 94? The first one? The first NBA Jam arcade?
The original one came out in 93. Dates are kind of fuzzy, but
I thought it was 92, but I could be wrong.
Okay, so
Mortal Kombat came out in 92. They're working on it in 92. So the pitch video they made to the NBA is dated June 92. So I think it came out itself like early 93 or mid 93, something like that.
Okay.
Definitely April.
So I'm a Minnesota boy. We go down to sunny Florida for Disney World, and we go the first day though. We go to a pizza shop, and they have this game playing. It was NBA Jam, and I looked at it and I was like, "Dad, we got to play as many quarters on it." That was the highlight of it. It wasn't Space Mountain or whatever. It was playing NBA Jam.
I don't blame you. I thought the same thing. Who's your team?
Oh, at that time I was a Lakers guy. I was Magic, but they didn't have Magic. It was Worthy and Divac, I think. And then of course now Timberwolves. The rifleman Chuck Person on the original one, and then Ryder and Leitner. You gotta go hometown.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they weren't too bad in TE with Gugliotta as well. They had a solid.
Well, Googs was on Golden State and TE.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Or at least the Sega version was.
All right. So, Reyan, you played it when you were younger on the Sega Genesis, you said.
Yep.
So, did you continue playing this throughout, to where you are now? Or did you come back to it?
I've always had the love for arcade games. Like arcade games, so, if I had to pick a favorite console or favorite format, I would probably pick arcade games. That said, though, I only played it sparingly. I would maybe see it someplace out, like let's say at a barcade, and I would play it. And then it was only when I was really pitching this book back in 2015 that I really got back into it again. So I knew about it through the years, and it was very kind of that warm, fuzzy nostalgia that's kind of crystallized, that's there somewhere, but you don't go back to it for a bit. And then when I finally opened that up again in 2015 or so, then it was like the floodgates just burst wide open, and then I was like back in full-blown NBA Jam nostalgia. So it was probably
a powerful drug, man.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's why I'm working on this thing. That's why I spent 2 years working on this thing. Yeah. That's why we're talking about it here today. That's where we're meeting. So yeah, nostalgia is everything.
So I think we probably answered most of this question, but what motivated you to start writing the book? Was there something that happened, or it was just like I have nostalgia for this and it's always been in the back of my mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did it for, so I'm working on the book for a series called Boss Fight Books, based out of Los Angeles. Let me see if I can dig up a copy of the couple of their books they have. So what they do is they do individual books about games. So this one is about Super Mario Brothers 2. We've got one that they did also about Bible adventures. So it's a really cool format. I mean, they're these small books that do deep dives into individual video games. And so I was a writer for several years. I did lots of pop culture stuff, some pro wrestling stuff. That was basically my full-time thing, was freelancing for different outlets. So I pitched this NBA Jam book to Boss Fight Books in 2015, thinking, I know there's an audience out there for NBA Jam. People love this game. There's so many fun memories, and I'm sure I can get some cool people to talk for the book. And I'm sure there's some crazy stories that we've never heard before. And publisher was into it, went through the whole pitch process in 2015. I'd never written a book before. I've written tons and tons of articles. And then when he finally said yes, I was like, okay, let me add it. And then I've talked to all kinds of people since then. So I have a pretty crazy roster in terms of interviewees for the book. So it all started with the idea, knowing that people love NBA Jam so much, they're willing to talk about it. And if it was so popular once, there's got to be enough of a story there to really make it worthwhile for a book in the first place.
Yeah. Now, you got some tough competition, because I right here have the official strategy guide by Brady.
No, I'm tapping out, guys. All right.
It's hard, and it's like, I mean, the guys are pretty good. Talking about Rice has good speed in open court. He uses fast breaks and easy hoops.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But you know what's way cooler?
What?
Check this out. Check this puppy out. All right, so I have got the original NBA Jam strategy guide.
Ooh.
Game Pro. Yeah. This is the real deal. This is officially licensed. Yeah. So
you're saying Nick has the bootleg?
I do. I might have it.
He's got the unofficial version.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
The googly out version.
The best part about it at the end, like with all the codes, they had ripped it out because they were using the codes so much, and put it back in.
Yeah. I love that stuff. You know what's really cool about this is, check it out. So you can't really tell probably from that perspective, but let me tell you about the very front disclaimer of this book. It's from Infotainment World, a GamePro's publisher, and it says certain terminology used in NBA Jam, shove, throw elbows, knockdown, does not reflect nor indicate an endorsement of the NBA of excessive sports. So they were serious about this. They were making sure that this is getting cleared, and these terms are solely used in conjunction with playing the game NBA Jam. NBA Jam is a fantasy game, and it's not intended to represent an actual NBA game. So that's how you know it's the real official one, because it had this disclaimer front and center. First thing.
So do you think, because you said Mortal Kombat came a little bit after NBA Jam? Or
right before, yeah.
Right before. You think that was scaring the NBA people off a little bit or do you think they didn't even know about Mortal Kombat coming out at the same time?
Yeah, I think that the whole idea of any kind of roughness in games made them real uncomfortable. So the thing is that Mortal Kombat's development and NBA Jam's development coincides so much. I haven't really gotten too much of a definitive answer in terms of if Mortal Kombat influenced whether the NBA was gun shy about going forward with an arcade basketball game from Midway. There might be a relationship there. I think in terms of that, though, that's the NBA saying, whoa, check it out. This is not what NFL Blitz would become. This is, this is strictly a game. And we don't do anything in terms of roughness. So
the NBA obviously never watched a Detroit Pistons game before then.
Exactly. Come on, this is peak Bad Boy. Well, not peak Bad Boys era. Post-peak Bad Boys era. I mean, there's got Barkley in the game. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know that there's going to be they're going to be doing some shoving.
So, Reyan, you said that you've interviewed some people for this book. So, what are some of the hot interviews you've gotten so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me write it down. So, the first thing I absolutely had to get, of course, was the development team. So, I've got the original development team. So Mark Turmel, the main creator, who also developed Smash TV. He did Total Carnage. He did NFL Blitz and the big sports titles that came afterward. He did Ballers. He was one of the first people I went after. So I got him and the original team. I have Tim Kitzrow, the announcer. I have George Clinton, who was willing to talk to me once.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought I wasn't going to get George Clinton, but I got him, and he was willing to
be
talk
in the game.
Yeah.
As a coded character, yeah.
Yeah, and he was he was a secret character in one of the home versions. I'm not sure if one of the home versions or multiple home versions. And he said that he was told his hair is on fire in the game. And I didn't have the heart. I mean, it's George Clinton. This guy's a legend. I wasn't gonna be
P-Funk, flashlight. He wrote flashlight.
Yeah. So I got George Clinton. I got Glenn Rice, who was a great guy. He was a great interviewee. He said verbatim, "I was an NBA Jam junkie," and he told me these stories of staying up late with his kids. His kids would have to flip a coin over who would get to play his dad. He had 2 NBA Jam machines in his house because he didn't want to wait. He didn't have the time. Like, if the first one was being occupied by his kids, he had to get on the second one. It's crazy. So I got him. I got Kenneth Fareed, who's on the Nuggets right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got him for a real short interview. But let's see who else I got. DJ Jazzy Jeff, that was a big one. That was in one. Yeah, great guy, and he had a really interesting story too. Because all these famous characters appear in the game, right? But when you think about it, going out and licensing the rights to all these people, Will Smith, George Clinton, DJ Jazzy Jeff, all these people, this is the early 90s. There's not necessarily agreements in place. So I thought there might be, there might not be. When I talked to DJ Jazzy Jeff, he indicated that he can't remember ever getting paid to be in the game, but he loved the game so much that he says, no matter what, I would still want to be in the game because it made such an impact on people, and some things are bigger than money, which I thought was a pretty profound statement. Not everybody's willing to pass up money just so they can be involved in a project like that.
Yeah.
So it's very possible. Go ahead, Nick. Oh, go ahead. So, sorry. So it's very possible that Midway was just putting people into the game without actually getting their permission.
Yeah. So actually, the really interesting secret characters that people remember, like let's say Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Will Smith, DJ Jazzy Jeff, these kinds of people, that was Acclaim's doing. So Acclaim, who was working on the home port, ended up. So the original game just has the developers and has a few weird characters in there. And then when Acclaim got the rights to do the home version, then they started going wild and adding all these other ones. So Acclaim would have been responsible for this. And it sounds like Acclaim just, they just went crazy with it. I mean, Prince Charles is in the game. Yeah. You've got all these people you forget that are in the game. Heavy D's in the game. All these different people. So I think they're the ones who weren't necessarily doing their due diligence, but I can't say definitively because I'm still kind of going through and parsing out whether they actually did sign those agreements or not. But yeah, that would have been Acclaim's doing.
Yeah, I was going to say too, it's cool that Midway actually the developers rewarded themselves for making the game by putting themselves in the game. Mm-hmm. Not only are they in the game, but they're usually some of the best players in the game too with their attributes.
Absolutely. Mark Turmel is the single best player in the game. And what was it? MJT March 22. His code, and he made himself the best in the game by far. So it's pretty crazy. I mean, they started the whole secret characters thing just on a lark. They were doing it because they were saying, "Oh, well, we can put player heads in the game. Why don't we throw ourselves in the game?" And then that started the whole thing. So it kind of started as a joke at Midway that they were going to do that. So, yeah. And there's actually one more interviewee one more interviewee I want to mention, which is Shaq. I got Shaq for the book, and Shaq was super. Yeah. That was a huge coup. By the way, I'm totally forgetting some other people right now, which makes me feel really bad. Oh man, I got so Shaq was one. I've got some others, but focusing on Shaq for a second. Yeah, Shaq played it all the time in the 90s. He told me stories about the Magic hanging out after games, playing NBA Jam, which is just the most amazing thing I've ever heard. You know what I mean? Like early 90s Magic getting together, Penny's in the room, he's in the room, Dennis Scott's in the room. They're all playing NBA Jam together. What an yeah.
That's like Bo Jackson playing Tecmo Bowl.
Absolutely, yeah. And he would never play as himself, too. He always played as Chris Mullin or somebody who could shoot threes because he wanted to do something he couldn't do in real life.
Oh, Oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah. It was pretty cool talking to him and knowing that. So I worked for months to get Shaq. When I got Shaq, that's when
how do you do that?
part
How
of
do
me
you
knew
hustle?
this could be a big thing. But
All right, so you talked about Acclaim a little bit about how they put all of these hidden characters in the game that weren't necessarily in the arcade game by Midway. So we know Acclaim did most of the ports for NBA Jam and NBA Jam TE. I don't know if they did every single one. Am I wrong there with the NBA Jam TE?
They would have done every single one. So they had a licensing agreement with Midway that went back to the very early 90s. So what happened was Midway at that point was only doing coin-operated games. So they only did arcade games. So they weren't making any money on the home versions. So they signed an agreement with Acclaim, which is why you'll see things like Smash TV or Mortal Kombat that was created by Midway that Acclaim put out. And so Acclaim did all the early versions of NBA Jam that came out. So any NBA Jam ports, NBA Jam TE, all that early stuff, that would all have been Acclaim.
So are you going to cover in this book at all how Acclaim actually somehow ended up with the rights to the NBA Jam name over Midway?
Absolutely, yeah. And if there's an element of mystery or intrigue about this game, it's how it started out as a Midway game and then it up as an Acclaim game, and then after NBA Jam TE, it never came back to Midway, which was definitely it was a sore point for the people that made the original game. So yeah, I will absolutely cover that. There's a real interesting story behind that.
And you'll save that for the book, right?
No, yeah, I can save it for the book, but I can tell you a little bit about it right now if you want.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no. So let me just do a quick rundown of that. So it starts off as a Midway game. Then they started working with Acclaim. And in working with Acclaim, they've got an agreement to do a certain number of home versions. And then sometime around, let's say, the mid-90s, they are going to sever their relationship. Like they can't agree on a new deal. And then at that point, there's an aspect where it's like, was it Rashomon? In Rashomon, there's multiple perspectives of one event. This is what it's like with NBA Jam in terms of how it happened with Acclaim. Some people say that there was somebody at Acclaim that is affiliated with Acclaim that basically got the license moved over because they ended up working with the NBA. Other people say it was just something that was made it was a deal that was made between Midway's bosses and Acclaim's bosses. But anyways, it moved over to Acclaim, and it was definitely something that upset the Midway staff. And some of the people that worked on the game, they were cursing the hallway afterward. They were really upset. They couldn't believe that this baby they developed ended up at Acclaim. But Acclaim did have a whole real stake in the game because they were one of the original points of contact with the NBA. The Midway didn't have a lot of money by comparison to Acclaim in terms of negotiating the original deal.
Okay, it makes sense.
Yeah. It's just crazy though, thinking that a game can start out with one company and then up with another company, and then Electronic Arts released in 2010. So,
right.
So who was releasing the crap games after, after TE, like the PlayStation 1? Who was releasing those games that didn't seem to feel as good?
That was Acclaim. That was definitely Acclaim, and that was one of the reasons that I think that people held it against Acclaim, because in the years to come, nobody really talks about those NBA Jam games. People aren't playing those. Nobody's clamoring for a reboot of NBA Jam '98 or something like that.
Well,
so just to clarify, so Acclaim is just a publisher, right? Like it wasn't Iguana the one that put that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Acclaim was a publisher, and what they would do is they would have contracts with certain development companies, and at that time, what they needed was quick turnarounds and arcade conversions. So let's say they have a game that's come through Midway, NBA Jam. They want somebody to put it on the home consoles, and they need somebody who can do it fast. So Iguana could do it fastest. So Iguana ended up with the original contract to do the home conversion. But Acclaim put their name on all the boxes. Acclaim was on all the merchandising stuff. And with the future games, it wasn't necessarily Iguana, I believe. I think it might have been, if not, I don't think it was necessarily Iguana. It was like a new version of Iguana, or they might have worked with somebody else in some of those other ones. So, yeah.
And when Acclaim got the rights to NBA Jam, they pretty much blew it right off the bat with NBA Jam Extreme.
Yep.
They had Sean Kemp on the cover. They had Marv Albert as the announcer. So right there, you're like, oh, this game's going to be pretty good. They actually came out with the arcade cabinet, and that game was just terrible. there's really nothing else more to say about it. But so I want to know, what NBA Jam games are you going to cover in this series besides NBA Jam in your book? Because you have this split where Acclaim takes over the NBA Jam name and they release NBA Jam Extreme and then NBA Jam by, the year. And then Midway continues the series on with NBA Hang Time, NBA Showtime, NBA Hoops, NBA Ballers. So what else are you going to cover in this book?
I'm actually hoping to cover most of all of it. Some stuff in more detail than others, depending on how the stories are and if there's something that's a really compelling thread over there. But yeah, so the book focuses on NBA Jam in the beginning, and then it goes through and talks about how things change. And then there are going to be parts in there that are going to be about NBA Jam Extreme, which I talked to the CEO of Acclaim, or at least Acclaim isn't around anymore. But even he said, the game was a failure, essentially. The game really did not perform at all, according to any measure of expectations. So NBA Jam Extreme will be in there. NBA Hang Time, NBA Showtime. I don't think NBA Hoops is going to make it in there because it's essentially NBA Showtime. And I think that might have been just a home version. I might have a little passage in there about Ballers because that was also made by Mark Turmel, who made NBA Jam. And let's see, I might be forgetting a few other ones. I'm definitely going to try to cover the 2010 version, or might be getting that date wrong, but 2009, 2010.
Yeah, that was a good game.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that one, the EA Sports one.
Yeah.
They also, I think their last one was on the PS2. Acclaim tried to release an NBA Jam game.
Yep.
That one actually is not too bad to play, but going up against NBA Street and NBA Ballers at the time, it's a distant third.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And the thing is that at that point, I feel like the NBA Jam name was so it wasn't the same shape it was in 1993. People were going crazy over NBA Jam, and then when it was 2000, it was like it's NBA Jam. Okay, So I think that's a really interesting story too. How do you go from having a game that people love? I mean, Shaq talked to me for this book because he loved NBA Jam. And then you go from having a game you love to having a game where it's kind of an also ran. Oh, okay. It's in the back of a Game Informer magazine, or it's in the back of EGM. It's not on the front cover anymore. How did that happen? So
yeah,
there's a really interesting story over there too, in terms of how all this happened.
And then another game I wanted to know if you're going to cover is Arch Rivals, because that's really the
Brawl State, go Brawl State, man.
Absolutely. The evolution of the series, that's where it started, right? So
yeah. So Arch Rivals has a really interesting story too, because it was so do you guys know much about Williams or Bally Midway, or in terms of those arcade companies and how they operated in the late 80s, early 90s? Do you know about the difference between Williams and Midway?
Not too much. I know there's maybe one was focusing more on pinball, but I'm not an expert on it.
Yeah. So let me just give you just a quick rundown on that. So let's say, what's a good example? Let's say Gorf, which is one arcade game, and then you've got Defender. So one of them, Gorf, was by Midway, Defender was by Williams. So these are two separate companies that are in Chicago making arcade games. And Arch Rivals was made at the original Midway. And then in the late 80s, what happens is Williams and Midway, who are big competitors in arcade games and in pinball, one buys the other. Williams buys Midway. And then Williams decides to change their name to Midway, which was not something that everybody at Williams liked, because they're thinking, we just beat these guys. Why are we taking their name? Mm-hmm. But in that merge, two of the guys that worked at that Midway came over to the new Midway, and those were the Arch Rivals guys. So I talked to them for the book. I talk about that story too. It's really interesting thinking that there was 2-on-2 arcade basketball right before Jam. So I talk a little bit about that. So absolutely, that's definitely something that's worth bringing up.
Yeah, great. And another point I wanted to bring up is with the evolution of all these NBA Jam games. As a kid, I didn't understand anything. I didn't pay attention to developers at all. So when I saw that NBA Jam name, I had a certain expectation that I was expecting since the original games, and was let down multiple times afterwards. So
absolutely, I think a lot of kids were. I really do think a lot of kids were. And I mean, I think it speaks to a lot that NBA Jam, like I was saying, was so popular in that early 90s, so hot. I mean, it made $1 billion in the year it came out. which is just insane when you think about it. $1 billion in quarters is a lot of money. And then you go from that to, you know, NBA Jam 98, NBA Jam 2000, even NBA Jam 2003. Quality, you know, regardless of quality, the brand is tainted. So I really do think that, you know, things like NBA Jam Extreme really took a real toll on the series.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the game so far. We want to know if there's any cool memorabilia, things that you've gotten off Etsy, eBay, you know, in preparation for the book, if there's anything you want to show us.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So I spent 2 years working on this thing, and what I'm really doing is like a deep dive into anything NBA Jam related. So I've really tried to go back and see what kind of stuff I can find out there, what kind of stuff people can send to me. So a couple of the weird things I've got over here. I've got this manual for an NBA Jam kit. Let me try to get this out of the light's way. So what this is a book of the schematics that goes out to the arcade operators. So sorry for the lighting setup.
That's awesome.
You're not going to be able to see it super well, but
it totally makes sense now.
What's that?
Totally makes sense now with all of the circuit wiring and stuff. Wow.
And it's really cool to see stuff like this and to get an idea of what an arcade operator in the early 90s might be receiving. So I have this, and with all this, I got something else that's really cool. And this is something that I'm going to, let's see, I need to get this focused right. So NBA Jam came first, then NBA Jam Tournament Edition, but they were still trying to promote NBA Jam tournaments. So what they did was they had this. This is like the really old school NBA Jam tournament. Sign up today.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's a plastic laminate, so you could write over it with a dry erase marker and then erase it. And then, of course, if you're going to have a tournament, you need a bracket. So,
oh, wow.
Oh, that's pretty. I want a tattoo of that on my back.
Yeah. Can you just imagine going to an arcade and seeing this hung up on a wall somewhere, and then, you know, trying to, I gotta fill my name in that bracket so I can show up and play NBA Jam for keeps. So those are a couple of cool things. I got an original flyer over here. So these were sent out to the arcade operators.
Ooh, Chuck's on that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is another interesting thing about NBA Jam is that, so on this flyer, it references things like Scanorama and Spectrum View, which are essentially just buzzwords made up by Midway's marketing staff for technology that NBA Jam had. And there's one developer in particular who did not like that at all and felt like, why are you going to try and sell NBA Jam with Scanorama or AutoStat or JamCam with all these made up words you never hear about again, when you could just be talking about the game itself. So these flyers, yeah, these were sent out to arcade operators. I got one for Tournament Edition over here too. These things are super cool. You can find them off on eBay. They're pretty cheap. Amazing little things you can put up on a wall somewhere. So once this is all said and done, I'm definitely going to try to put this up. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to frame that thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then let's see. So we've got, of course, the NBA Jam strategy guide over here.
Oh,
now this was cool because this is got an interview with the guy who was the original model for NBA Jam. So what it did was Midway digitized a real player, a street ball player, and this guy's name is Willie Morris. And there's an interview with Willie Morris in here. So you can, and this is the only interview I've ever been able to find with this guy. And Willie Morris is a common enough game that I haven't been able to find him for the book. So it's a really, really cool source. I mean, just knowing that there's like stuff like this out there where there's like interviews hidden away in guides.
It's the guy they did like the screen captures, like the Johnny Cage uppercuts and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they did, yeah. So I've got a quick interview over here with Willie Morris. I mean, this guy was just playing street ball on a court somewhere in Chicago. Mark Trammell comes up to him and says, we want to make a basketball game. Do you want to be in it? And he thought he was joking. I mean, it's just so crazy to think about. This is, the early 90s. And then finally, this is a big one. I've got one of the original arcade toppers for Tournament Edition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is the real deal. Yeah. So they would put this on top of the NBA Jam games after they made the conversions. So yeah, so after they had changed the kits over to the new version, they would put this on the top so that it would stand out in the arcade and you could say, oh, okay, wow, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, what's that? Let me go over and play it. So
they would take out the circuits or whatever and put in the other jams. So the old NBA jams are like not around as long, or
Yeah, it's a JAMA board that goes in arcade cabinets that you could switch them out. It's like a universal, basically plug for different games in the 90s. It started, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that is definitely how it was. And what they would do is they would send out full conversion kits to arcades. So if you wanted to get a full game, a full NBA Jam Tournament Edition with a new side art and everything, you could do that. Or you could just go and then put this on top of your currently existing NBA Jam game, and then it would look like Tournament Edition from a distance. And with the new board, yeah, it's the real deal. So. It's just another marketing thing. So It's really cool to see how they would promote these games within arcades, because that's one of the things I feel like I didn't really notice when I was a kid if I did see an arcade,
Awesome. That's some cool stuff. Can't wait to see it all, how you lay it out in the book.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more to come too, so.
Absolutely, yeah. So what I'm hoping is that, if you ever want to do this a second time, I'll get an all new round of memorabilia to share off, because I've got some to show off, because I've got some more stuff to share sitting in the basement right now.
Well, you gotta come out to Madison this year for our big NBA Jam doubles tournament we're gonna do. That's what you got to do.
That is amazing. That is amazing. I love that there's NBA Jam tournaments. I mean, come on. That's just just another testament to how much people love the game. It's great to hear stuff like that. Yeah.
All right, so Reyan, I want to know, you've played a lot of NBA Jam games. What is your actual favorite version of the game? Is it NBA Jam, NBA Jam TE, and is it the arcade, or is it on one of the consoles?
Mm-hmm. So I would say the peak version has to be NBA Jam Tournament Edition in the arcade, because what you have is you have an upgrade of the original with the same team working on it. You've got the ability to do substitutions. You've got small updates here and there in terms of how the game plays. I would definitely say NBA Jam Tournament Edition in the arcade. Then NBA Jam TE on the Genesis. That has a special place in my heart because it was the first one I played. But the Tournament Edition version in the arcade, that's the good stuff. You know what I mean? If I was going to get one game in terms of NBA Jam, it would be that one. I mean, the original is beautiful too, but the TE is just an upgraded version of the original. So personally, just a personal favorite would probably be TE.
Sounds good. Good choice.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with NBA Jam TE.
Absolutely nothing.
All the upgrades.
Yeah.
Although I have found out that the injury factor in TE plays a huge role.
Huge.
More than I thought it did versus the original. Because the original, there's only 2 guys in each team, so they just keep those attributes throughout the game.
Yeah.
This TE, you get pushed around a lot, go into a quarter with 10 or more injuries, your guy's moving slow as molasses.
Yeah, it's like he's got crap in his pants. He can't run.
So that makes it tough when you're actually playing in a tournament.
Yeah,
you get in one of those situations where you have that many injuries, and one of the guys has to go with a over 10 injury guy, and only one guy's fresh off the bench, unless you get the extended rosters where you beat the game and you put in a code, I guess. So.
What's crazy is that there's a point where attributes weren't even in the game in a very early version. And so they put out the game for test in the arcades, and John Stockton played the exact same as Karl Malone, which members of the Midway development team that were working on Jam were just like, there was one guy in particular named John Carlton who was like, how are these going to be the same? I mean, John Stockton shouldn't be able to do a dunk. I mean, so all that stuff was added a little bit later on, but it's crazy to think about an alternate version of NBA Jam where these attributes don't matter. They're just something on the screen that is essentially everybody would play the same. So, yeah, it's interesting how they really developed those and they fleshed out the system as time went on.
So I think you answered my next question. You like the Genesis port of NBA Jam TE the best. Is that correct?
Personally, I mean, man, nostalgia is that powerful drug. I mean, just nostalgia is so good. So I would say, yeah, it would be that one. But I mean, the Super Nintendo port was nothing to mess around with either. That one was really something special too. I mean, the thing about those ports is that the PlayStation 1 that came along later was much more like the arcade version. It was super cool, but it wasn't peak NBA Jam. You know what I mean? Like the timing matters a lot. And for those kids in the early 90s, it was probably either going to be the Genesis version or the Super Nintendo version they played, even though they aren't all that accurate compared to the PlayStation 1. Technically, the PlayStation 1 is a great port, but the Genesis and Super Nintendo versions. Those are the ones that I feel like really matter because based on the timing and just how big NBA Jam was at that point.
So the Sega Saturn one pretty much plays like the PlayStation one. They're almost identical. Have you ever played the Jaguar or the 32X, Sega 32X?
I have not. I have not. No, I never had the pleasure. Although I saw that the Jaguar one had a really big ball. Like it looked like a beach ball, basically. It was just a huge ball, like disproportionate. But no, I've never played those games. That's bad as far as I know is about the Jaguar ones. Are they any good?
Yeah, they're really good, to be honest. The Jaguar one, I would say if you have 4 players, like not playing against the computer because the computer is kind of cheap in that game. But if you have 4 players, I think it's the best console port.
Mm. Okay.
It's arguable. And then the 32X is just like a scaled down version of the Jaguar one. But I have the game, but I don't have a 32X, so I haven't played it yet. I'm still working on that.
Right. Yeah.
All right, cool. So we talked your favorite game in the NBA Jam series is TE. So are there there's tons of NBA Jam Easter eggs. Actually, there's tons of Easter eggs littered throughout of all of Midway's games. That's just something that they did. I don't know if there's a company that had more Easter eggs than Midway. So are there any Easter eggs that aren't well known or Easter eggs you want to share about NBA Jam series in general?
Yeah. Man, there's so much stuff. I would really let's see. Is there anything in particular that you're thinking of? As in, do you want to know something about a secret character or about an ability you can do within the game or something you can do in the original arcade version? What kind of stuff?
Well,
really
I think the most intriguing one to people is the fact that Mark Turmel says that there's a ROM that has a version with Jordan and Gary Payton on the same team.
Yep.
Only released to them. Now, he says it, but there's no evidence of it so far that I know. So is that true? And do you think we'll ever see that released?
I think it's true. I definitely think it's true. And what's funny is that they had Gary Payton and Michael Jordan and Ken Griffey Jr. Excuse me, Ken Griffey Jr. is the third person who was involved in that whole time period of ROMs. So yeah, so I do think those games are real. Gary Payton went on a sports radio show, I think a couple of months ago, and he talked about having that game somewhere out there. Gary Payton in NBA Jam before he was officially in NBA Jam. So Mark Turmel, I talked to him about this once. I was saying, you've talked about these Jordan ROMs before. He did a Reddit AMA. Is this out there any place? And he said it's in his garage. But what it is it's one. I think it's one board that's sitting amongst a whole bunch of others, and it's unlabeled. But somewhere in Mark Turmel's garage in California, there is a version of NBA Jam with Michael Jordan on it that was made for Michael Jordan, and I think I believe him. I mean, he's told me enough about it that I think it's true. I mean, it's and excuse me, NBA Jam was that big that even Michael Jordan would say, "Okay, put me in the game, even though I'm not officially in the game." You can officially put me in the game because of money issues, but I still want to see what it's like to have me in the game. So I think it's out there somewhere.
Yeah, if anyone could get a game made for him, it would be Michael Jordan. So
absolutely. Yeah. Who's going to turn on Michael Jordan? He might be a little sore that you don't want to be in our main game, but you do want a special version of the game just for you. But I mean, it's Michael Jordan. I mean, yeah, if anybody can ask for special treatment in the '90s, yeah. I mean, yeah, that guy was as good as the president. So.
Yeah, and Gary Payton, he wasn't a rookie, but he just wasn't like a well-known player yet, so he just wasn't in the game.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so he wanted to be in the game. So like he saw the game himself and he wanted to be in it. So he sent in his headshots and everything to Midway. I mean, can you just imagine Ken Griffey Jr. going someplace and having his headshots taken at all these different angles, so to have him put within the game just because he likes it so much? That's such a bizarre image. Like, what does Ken Griffey Jr. do in his spare time? Oh, he goes and has his headshots taken so he can be in a special version of NBA Jam that sits in his garage someplace. Well, so yeah, I mean, yeah, that's another testament to just how popular this game was. I mean,
yeah, I think another important thing to note, and you've already talked about, is the NBA Jam was pre-internet. Mm-hmm. When it came out, so it was just something that caught fire. People seen it throughout the country. You even seen it in a different country and was intrigued by it. So it just had pull even without the network of the internet. So that's pretty interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's so many like reasons that people like NBA Jam too. You know, I don't think it was just popular just because it was a fun game. I think it was popular because it was the right game at the right time in terms of the license. You know, having the player heads. I mean, when you think about it, it's a small thing, but the ability to play as a different team, no matter where you are, you know, your team that's a crazy good hook. I mean, if you're in Dallas, you can play as the Mavericks. I mean, you probably wouldn't want to play as the Mavericks, but you can play as the Mavericks. But and then, you know, if you're in Chicago, you can play as the Bulls. I mean, if you're across the country in Los Angeles, you can play as the Lakers. That's just a crazy little. That's a very specific hook to this game that you can't get in other games. You know.
And Uzolino is one of the guys on the Mavericks in the arcade version. And I've heard that they did that kind of jokingly. Did you know anything about that?
Haven't heard anything about it being joking, about it being a joke. But I mean, that early '90s Mavericks roster, that was pretty slim pickings. So I guess they're just like, let's go for it. Yeah. So what happened was there was a couple of guys at Midway, Mark Trammell, the lead designer, and John Hay, who did the sound, who ended up coming up with the ideas for who they wanted on the roster in terms of how they played. So they could only get 2 guys at a time. So I guess they somehow decided Mike Isolino. I'm not sure if they necessarily did it as a gag, but I'm sure he doesn't mind. I mean, Mike Isolino does interview nowadays solely focusing on NBA Jam. So, I mean, that's what people remember him for.
That's hilarious. That's kind of like some of the guys in Tecmo Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. If they weren't in that game, you know, they might not be remembered the same way. But
exactly, yeah.
Like a guy's that's like that is Wayne Haddix on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mm-hmm. He had like one good season in the NFL, but he's unbelievable in Tecmo Super Bowl. So a guy that always gets brought up.
Absolutely, and you're immortalized, you know? I mean, this is something that you can come back to, and this is a game that people will remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was one other Easter egg I didn't want to mention, and I'm thinking about it, that I thought was a really interesting thing, was the tank game. Do you guys know about the tank game?
Is this like a special on the control board? You put in a special combination, you could play a game?
Yep. You have the right idea. So, yeah, so this was a small thing. Well, this was like for just a hot minute at Midway, this was just a really high-pressure situation that came because of this tank game. So there was this programmer named Sean Liptak who did a lot of the real bones of the game. Like he did like the rim physics. He came up with the scrolling technology, so how a player is big at the bottom of the screen but smaller as they go up. He came up with that technology. He's just really one of the unsung heroes in this game. Sean Liptak loved tank games, and he created this kind of battle zone kind of tank game, just this 3D demo. He puts it in the game. The whole idea with it is that you can coin in, you can get a nice matchup, and you can do something called the octopus, which is basically you just spread out your hands on the controls, and you cover the I'm not sure all the joysticks at once or all the controls at once, but most of them, and then you get into the tank game. So he put this in the game, but I don't think he made it so that you absolutely had to coin in to do it. So what happened was people were going in, and people will end up finding this stuff. They found the fatalities in Mortal Kombat. They're going to find this in NBA Jam. They go and they put their hands on the machine while they're messing around, and all of a sudden it goes from the demo mode to this tank game. And people at Midway were like, what are you doing? How is this? How did you guys let this happen in the game? People can just play this extra game for free. So, when the NBA Jam team themselves found out that there was a way to play a free game, they had to send out special updates to arcade operators. And it was a thing for a minute, like, oh no, like, how are you going to have this free game within there? How are you going to make this big glitch? But, of course, people really want to play NBA Jam. They're not going to go and play this tank demo. But people were really concerned when they initially they found out that you could play it without doing that. And I don't think Sean Liptak meant to do that either. He just put it in the game, but something went wrong.
You definitely don't want an NBA Jam machine getting taken up by a tank game.
Exactly, yeah.
Collecting those quarters.
Exactly, yeah. Free tank game, playing the demo, yeah.
There's plenty of combats out there on Atari 2600 if you want to play a tank game.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of things. Yeah.
You mentioned Mortal Kombat before. Do you have any ties directly to some of that community as well? You had talked about with all the Midway connections and such that you spoke with, that one credit or the credit eating. I was able to get through that game in one credit quite frequently in the arcades, and I was just curious, who you knew on that team that worked on that.
On the Mortal Kombat team that worked on NBA Jam?
Correct.
Yeah. So actually, there's a couple of people that come to mind. So one person is Tony Goski, who wasn't on Mortal Kombat 1, but on Mortal Kombat 2, he did all the backgrounds. So, for example, if you know the Living Forest, he did the Living Forest. Yeah. And he was on NBA Jam, and he did the player heads. It took him 2 months. He spent 2 months putting together these player heads through different reference material that he had. So he was somebody that worked on Mortal Kombat later. I forgot that I spoke to John Tobias for the book, one of the co-creators of Mortal Kombat. And he was very close with Mark Turmel, who was the main creator of NBA Jam. And, they worked together on Smash TV. They worked together on Total Carnage. And then the second game they made, Total Carnage, was a failure. So John Tobias goes over and makes Mortal Kombat. Mark Turmel goes and makes NBA Jam. But they were working on this game side by side. John Hay, the sound guy in NBA Jam, he did the voice of Raiden in Mortal Kombat 1. There was a whole lot of overlap over there. I'm sure I'm forgetting some other big ones. I mean, Ed Boon was doing a voice for Mark Turmel's game for Smash TV, and these guys were always just trading. So yes, there's a lot of connections over there. Dan Forden,
Toasty?
The Toasty guy, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And NBA Jam, I think it's the original. Those backboards have those ads on them, right?
Yeah, there's some cross promotion going on there.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's one that says something about Cheer Accident, and that is an indie rock band that Dan Forden was in the early 90s. So the NBA would not allow them to put Midway to put real sponsors in the game because it might be a liability or it might be too much to go through. They just threw in, their buddies' bands. They threw in fake stuff in there. So yeah, Cheer Accident. If you ever see that in the game, keep an eye out for it. That's Dan Forden's band from the early 90s.
Yeah, that's a good Easter egg. I didn't know that.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of them. There's something called Tortorice's Pizzeria. I might be butchering that name. That was I think a pizzeria that they used to go to.
I've seen that.
Yeah. There was another one in NBA JMT called Peking Palace. There's that's based on a real restaurant that a Midway employee, his family owned in Michigan. So that, this is a guy who was new to Midway. He said, okay, can I we don't have anything for these backboards right now, or can we put in my family's restaurant? They threw in a plug for his family's restaurant just out of nowhere. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Those backboards are pretty cool. You got to pay attention to those. There's some neat stuff over there.
Yeah. I've seen recycle on there a lot too, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there's the recycle message. It says NBA Jam. There's one that says Air Morris, which is for Willie Morris, who's the first model for NBA Jam. If you see something about John Hay Band, John Hay is the sound guy that I was talking about. He's the voice of Raiden. He came up with the music. He was friends with Tim Kitzrow, and he's the one who brought Tim Kitzrow, Mr. Boom Shakalaka on.
Yeah, it seems like he's made a career out of being an announcer. And
he has, yeah. He was a drummer in a local band that John Hay was friendly with. So John Hay, Dan Forden, and Tim Kitzrow were all part of the same music scene. And they got to know each other in the early 90s. And Tim Kitzrow would come by and he did the voice of Popeye on a Popeye pinball game. He was on a Gilligan's Island pinball game. Then John Hay needed a voice for NBA Jam. Marv Albert was out of the price range. So he said to Mark Turmel, he says, hey, can we get Tim Kitzrow in here? So Mark Turmel gives him the go-ahead. And then Tim Kitzrow comes in, and for him, it was just another gig. And he comes in, and then he ends up making a whole career out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw he was doing that Kitzrow was doing the voiceover for the new Mutant League football game that's coming out on the PC.
And he's had a really cool story, too. I mean, just thinking there's this guy out there who I think he was a waiter at the time. He's a waiter. He's in a band. He's just doing his best to get roles and I think commercials, things like that. That he gets this gig out of nowhere, and then he thinks it's a great thing, but he doesn't really think about it too much. He ends up making his whole career off of it. That's a pretty wild story when you think about it. You just walk into an office one day for something small, and then that's you.
Yep, he's the guy. He's the guy with all the sayings.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. Yeah, I mean, they worked in this place that I think they called it the meat locker or something like that, or the sweat box or sweat locker. I forget the original name, but it's just this tiny room, and they would just record all this stuff in there, and that stuff is people still say those quotes, and he just came in there just on a lark.
Yeah, people even implement "He's on Fire" in the beer pong.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, for the 30 ring. Yeah.
So we talked a bunch about NBA Jam in this book. So when do we expect it to come out?
Oh, so I'm working diligently on it, working on it all the time. Hopefully, so I'm probably, I'd say a third, just over a third through it. The thing is, I've done all the big reporting. I've gotten all that out of the way. So I've spoken to all these different sources, looking at releasing it. Hopefully, I'd say end of the first quarter, maybe second quarter of next year. So looking at it by, like, let's say spring, maybe summer. So yeah, so that said though, it's really just a matter of time. Still putting it all together, but I'd say yeah, spring, summer, with more information coming soon, because I don't want to say a definitive date and then have it end up getting changed as it goes through the editing process. But yeah.
So is the cover going to be similar to those other books you showed us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the cover is a ball on fire. Yeah, and a ball was literally set on fire for this cover, which is so cool. Yeah. So it's gonna be a ball on fire, and I can send you guys a picture of that too. If you go to my Twitter profile, the @NBA Jam book, and you click on my profile icon, that's the cover.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Well, I'd suggest getting it done by April and set up at a table at the world's largest NBA Jam tournament in April, and you'll pay for your plane ticket, I'm sure.
I like the way you think. Absolutely. Yeah. No. So I definitely want to do some stuff with it. I was thinking about maybe I could do readings or something like that. I mean, there's all these cool stories, and it's so much fun to talk to people about the game. I feel like, yeah, people would come out for it.
You know, thinking about the social media now, you get Shaq to take a picture with the book, and how many fuckers are going to buy it after that when Shaq's holding up the book like that?
Absolutely.
You're going to get some cash, man.
Yeah. Every single favor I can possibly ask of anybody, I'm going to ask. And yeah, I've got so many different people that are involved in this project that I hope somebody will be able to retweet it or to do something with it. I've had people that have asked to interview for the book who said no, that I'm still going to try again. Macaulay Culkin was one. I could try to get Macaulay Culkin for the book.
Wow.
Yeah, because he was a fan of NBA Jam in the early 90s, and he did a tour of the Midway offices, and he recognized one of the NBA Jam developers because he played that secret character so much.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I was thinking, man, I bet he would. I bet he loves this game. So unfortunately, I did not get an interview with him, but I am still keeping it somewhere in the back of my mind that I might throw him a note, be like, oh, I know you didn't say yes to the interview, but maybe you'll like this book. So yeah, there's all these different people. Jimmy Fallon loves NBA Jam. If Jimmy Fallon says something, then I'm made. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I hope you get some of those interviews leading up to the release of the book. I'm looking forward to it. I'll definitely be purchasing one of these. So
me too.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for the support. Yeah, I'm really taking it seriously. I mean, I spent like 2 years working on this. This is essentially my PhD in writing. Like, I spend so much time on it because I know this is so special to so many people, and there's so many crazy stories and so many cool characters, and there's like this huge world out there. I mean, just going through like the people I didn't mention in that interviewees list earlier, like I got John Romero for the book because John Romero was a big fan of Mark Turmel's earlier games, and then he played NBA Jam in the early 90s. I mean, thinking in software, they're probably playing NBA Jam when they're not making Doom or Quake or something like that. I mean, that's just, wow. People love NBA Jam, man. So, yeah, thank you so much for all the support. Working on it. We'll have an update soon. I would absolutely love to come back if you guys would have me to talk more about how the book shaped up and to bring on more merchandise to share.
Yes, for sure. We would we definitely, as much as we can talk to you, we'd love to.
If you find a Timberwolves Chuck Person jersey, send it my way, man.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, that's going up on my wall. If I can find a Chuck Person jersey, that's getting framed. That's going to go up on the wall. Yeah. I'm going to print out his headshot and put it right over there.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. No. I love the T-Wolves. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I had a Tom Goldada card when I was a kid, and I cut off I took a photo of myself, and there was a photo of there of myself, cut off my head, put it on the card for some kind of school project. When I was like, what I dream of being someday was a basketball player. It was a Tom Goldada card.
Oh, I love it.
Upper Deck 96, 97 with my head on it. So no, God bless the T-Wolves.
Dang right.
Absolutely.
Well, Reyan, we got a couple more discussion topics that are basketball video game related. So if you want to stay on with us for those,
Absolutely.
Before we get on to our tournament results stuff.
Yeah.
So we got 2 discussion topics, and we kind of already breezed across this one, but have you guys played the NBA Jam remake by EA Sports? There was actually 2 of them back to back. There's an NBA Jam that came out on the Wii, and then shortly after on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. And they are actually teasing that it was going to be released with the game that never came out, which was called NBA Elite.
Yep.
So it didn't end up happening that way. So have you guys played it? Troy, I'm going to start with you. Have you played this version of NBA Jam?
I have not, unfortunately. I've played the reboots of Blitz, but I've not played the new NBA Jam.
Okay. All right, Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I have the Wii one, and it was all good and all, but it's one of those, it's a couch co-op type of thing, so I didn't, I got 3 kids now, so people aren't coming over, so if I wasn't playing it with somebody, I didn't really play through the game. But it did come out on the iPhone, and I wasted a lot. I used all my pooping hours at work on the iPhone game.
Oh, that's great. And then Reyan, what about you?
Yeah. So actually, before I was working on this book, I got back into NBA Jam because of that game. Because it looks and feels like the old games, Those Acclaim ones, those don't really capture that original magic of NBA Jam. But I feel like those 2010, the On Fire, the original one, then On Fire, the original EA one. Yeah, I thought they were really good. I mean, there was a lot of personality to them. Plus boss battles. I mean, that's such a cool idea. One-on-one with Magic Johnson or something like that, or one-on-one with Shaq. I mean, I feel like that's very NBA Jam in terms of like the spirit of it. So yeah, definitely. I loved them.
Yeah, me and my brother sitting here, we played a lot of those, both of those versions.
So much online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
We would just play together because you could play sitting next to each other 2-on-2. Unfortunately, there was a few, like, as far as how the game played, I thought it was pretty good. If I had to grade the game, I would grade it like a B. I liked all the emotions that they had on the players' faces.
Yeah, like the South Park heads kind of thing, how they would switch.
Yeah, the graphics were cool. What I didn't like about it, though, was how long it took each guy to shoot. So it was easy to block them, like on 3-point shots. Some of the guys were just...
Each player had their unique shot, too. Joakim Noah had his really weird shot in the game. I remember that.
Yeah. Dirk shot flat-footed, so he was super easy to block.
Yeah. And that game was also super hard at times. Like, there were some boss battles that I could never get past. There was one guy on the Kings at the time. I'm spacing on his name. But this was one of, like, the boss battles in the game. Or maybe it was one of those things where you had to go 2-on-2. And the Kings would just destroy me. I mean, I could be Magic Johnson and Kobe Bryant, and the Kings would just wipe the floor with me. So that they definitely needed some work in terms of like refining just how fair that game was. I mean, NBA Jam was always kind of cheated, but yeah, that game could be a little much at times. Yeah, no, for sure.
The one thing that was heartbreaking to me when I put the original one in the system was, how all the NBA Jam games, NBA Hang Time, NBA Showtime, they always had the demo mode where it showed you your initials and who's on the best win streak, who's the best records. I always loved that stuff. I always ate up the stats, and they did not have that in either of the games that way.
They did not.
So yeah, that was like the first thing. I got the game. I went straight to the NBA Jam forums that they had at the time. Like, how did you guys miss this? Like, this is like a core part of the arcade experience.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And seeing your name up there, that's such a thrill. Yeah.
So really the only way you could get the stats was the online stats it kept, but nothing when you were just playing one-on-one versus each other. So
yeah.
But yeah, overall I thought it was a pretty good game. I don't know, Reyan, maybe who has the rights to the game right now? Is it still EA Sports?
Still EA, yeah. So they have the rights for a bit. I contacted somebody at EA sometime last year. They were really hard to get in touch with. But I was just looking around to see, okay, NBA Jam sitting on a shelf somewhere, who's got the rights to it? EA still has the rights. And then from there, I guess it's up in the air, but still EA. Yep.
You know what? I'm surprised they don't try to release a new version with it, with the NBA Live game that they're still trying to make. because they're getting crushed by NBA 2K. So you know what? Why would you let a name like NBA Jam just sit there and do nothing? I just don't understand it.
Absolutely. I think there's still value in the franchise. I think there's seriously a lot of value over there because NBA Jam is that special game. You know, like you were saying earlier, like there was Tecmo Super Bowl, NHL '94, and then was RBI Baseball was the fourth one?
Yes.
Yeah. So something like that. That's so special. I mean, I think leaving it on the shelf is a really terrible idea. So.
Well, we'll see if they do anything with it or if someone else takes the rights to the name. So let's move on to the next topic. And this is for everyone. And I'll start with Troy. Troy, in your opinion, what's the best basketball video game that you've ever played?
I mean, I cut my teeth on Double Dribble, so that's always going to have a special place in my heart, going back to the NES. But it was limited, and it really wasn't until NBA Jam came out that it was really worth looking at another one. I tried Tecmo basketball, and I appreciated what they were trying to do, but it was simulation too. They went like way too hard on it. So it wasn't NBA Jam, even though it's an arcade game. Still, I think captured that fun charm that we all, we watched the NBA for slam dunks and just super athletic play and watching Michael Jordan do what he did, and players like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson, and so I think that superstar power is what you're able to take a hold of in NBA Jam, and that's why it was so appealing. And I don't think there's really been a game since then that's really captured that.
Cool. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I think Troy said it pretty good there on the NBA Jam. Omitting NBA Jam and put in the caveat that I haven't bought anything past the PlayStation 2. Like the NBA like 95 Live on the Genesis was pretty good for like a simulation at the time. But I don't go back to play it much. And I played a ton of Arch Rivals on Nintendo. That was a big one. Brawl State, I did pick Lewis, the guy with the goggles. Oh yeah. That's do it.
Yeah. I got a quick funny fact about Arch Rivals is that all the characters were the same. Even though they look different.
Liar.
Witch, burn the witch. Yeah, no, they were all the same. That was just I'm sorry. I feel like I've now killed your childhood, but yes.
It's not hard. Even Hammer?
All of them are the same. All programmed the same. They just look different. Anything that you like feel is different is the power of perception. I'm sorry, I'm that guy.
Even Tyrone, the bald guy, Tyrone, even him? Oh, man.
They're the same. He's the same. The existential crisis begins. All right.
Oh man.
Next time you look at yourself in the mirror, it won't be the same. I know things have changed. I'm sorry. This is me. This is my fault.
All right, and so Reyan, what's your favorite sports basketball game?
I don't know, man. I feel like NBA Jam's got to take it, man. I feel like NBA Jam's got to take it. No. I mean, for me, like I was saying, like my first exposure to basketball, to the NBA, was NBA Jam. And I loved the NBA in the 90s because of NBA Jam. And there's something so special about that game that I feel like, it does capture the spirit of the sport. It's not really necessarily basketball, of course. You can't do like crazy dunks or just foul to your heart's content. But, it captures the spirit. Like it feels like basketball. And, I've played other simulations. I'm not really super into like sports games past the late 90s. Like I haven't really kept up, but I don't know. There's just something about it that was just so special in terms of like how it captured like the essence of what basketball is and what makes it fun. So, I mean, I got to go with NBA Jam. Obvious bias aside.
For me, it's between the original NBA Jam and NBA Showtime, the cabinet right here.
Oh,
man. Ooh, Showtime. Ooh, I should have mentioned Showtime. Man.
NBA Jam. Of course, that's I have the nostalgia for the original arcade game, and then you can't go wrong with any of the versions of NBA Jam TE. The thing about NBA Showtime though is it's faster paced.
Yep.
They balanced the game better with the pushing. Like they actually had fouls, so 5 pushes and you sent your opponent to the free throw line for a shot that's worth 3 points, and they get the ball back. So they kind of balanced out the game a bit. And the other thing is, it had the NBA on NBC jingle, and that's one of the greatest classic sports jingles of all time. Yeah. So
God bless John Tesh. John Tesh is a saint for what he did with Round Ball Rock. Oh.
Have you ever heard the Saturday Night Live skit where they put lyrics to it? It's pretty good. It's worth a Google.
That's awesome. I'm going to check that out. I've not seen that. No. Sometimes I'll just watch that at work. I really will just sit there and Google NBA on NBC theme and just listen to it. And then listen to God,
that's actually my only bad thing. The only thing I don't like about Jam is it kind of missed the heyday of Magic and Bird. You know, there aren't, even though you can get Bird when you can enter them in. Like I that's where I really identify was the Lakers Celtics, and they were kind of dying off. But with Jam was more of a Bulls Shaq time, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the NBA on NBC is my ringtone on my phone. It's the only one. I don't assign specific ringtones. That's all you get.
It's such a great theme. They need to bring that back. They're not. Nobody's using that nowadays, are they?
No, unfortunately.
Missing out. Bring back NBA Jam with that theme. That's money in the bank right there. You just know
it is.
Roll right in. The nostalgia is going to be over the top.
Oh, man. All right. So that's it for our discussion topics. Reyan, thank you so much for coming on. We'll get you back on again after you release the book.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And actually, could I end with a question for you guys?
Yes.
Sure.
What is your favorite NBA Jam line? In terms of the sayings, what's the favorite one? What's the one that really sticks out to you when you think of NBA Jam? Okay, and by the way, caveat, aside from Boom Shakalaka and he's on fire, slash he's up. No. That's a gimme. That's a gimme. Come on.
Okay.
You gotta play it up a little bit. What are your guys' favorite lines?
Okay. Well, On Fire and Boom Shakalaka are the first things that come on. You know, Can't Buy a Bucket, I guess, would be my next one.
Oh, that's a great one, yeah.
Well, there's so many good ones. Throws Up a Brick is a funny one.
Mm-hmm.
Is It the Shoes I've always liked.
Yeah.
One of the ones that always cracks me up is he's put the nail in the coffin.
Yep,
like they'll keep saying it. It's like, how many nails did I put in this coffin?
Yes.
So is it the shoes? Is it the shoes? Did NBA Jam start that, or did Spike Lee or whatever start that one with him?
Yeah, Spike Lee started that. Yeah, in a commercial with Michael Jordan, who did not want to be an NBA Jam, who would not authorize his name for NBA Jam. But I guess that's one of those things from that time period. We can tell that it was like Michael Jordan influence. So yeah, I think it started with the Spike Lee thing, and then Tim Kitzler did it, and I feel like it was better in NBA Jam than it was in the ad.
Probably now they'd have to pay for saying that if you did it this day and age, huh? Saying it's the shoes, big lines. Yeah,
the early 90s were such a wild west. I mean, like the whole thing with the secret characters, I mean, like I feel like you just did whatever you wanted in the early 90s. I mean, video games were very different back then. It was a totally different industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me on. This has been a blast. I would absolutely love to come back again. And if you have anything else you want to know on NBA Jam in the meantime, hell, if you ever want to check in to see, you know, if I have any more updates on a specific Easter egg you want to know about, hit me up. I'll be around. And it's just been a pleasure being on. And thank you so much for the great questions.
No, this was awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. You guys take care and best of luck with everything. And I'll hopefully be on here again.
Cool.
We'll see you.
All right. Okay. Good night, guys.
All right. We had Troy drop off. He just couldn't hang with the NBA Jam talk. More realistically, he's probably got to go to bed and
yeah, he's got that third kid's probably taking away most of his sleep.
Yeah, and I know he wanted to talk about some of the tournaments that we're gonna go over here. There's been a ton of Tecmo tournaments. We're gonna try to go through them the best we can. So we're gonna start with the ones that happened after our last monthly podcast, and that was actually the tournament that I threw here in Chicago, well, Berwyn, Illinois, at Michael Anthony's Pizza. I organized that tournament, and the results of that tournament, Tecmo Bowl was first place, Shallow Bay was second place, Phil N from D-Men Tap was 3rd place, and James Kuhn, another Illinois guy, was 4th place. Now, what I can say about the tournament we threw, the results are probably the wildest that we've seen out of any of the results that we're going to go over, given the format that probably played a part in it. Although there were some monster upsets in the tournament. I went over the tournament on this channel, so you could go over that. But basically,
Shalabay don't play.
Yeah, Shalabay don't play. Basically, the big upsets were, Mort beating Regulator with Redskins over Chiefs. Usually a matchup, people would say Chiefs have the advantage, but the Redskins proven to hang, and Mort wins on a last-second Hail Mary where he forces Regulator into a situation where he locks with the computer player in a grapple, and then Regulator runs into it. He bounces off, and he just runs in the end zone. So that was a crazy Tecmo moment, honestly. That was electrifying.
That's why you play the game. That's
why you play the games, exactly. Shalabay, he shows up late to the tournament. He ends up filling in for Flo because I knew Flo had to leave. And he was supposed to play in Division 4, but he ends up 2nd place in the tournament. And then Phil's another guy that was Division 4 out of the 5 groups, and he ends up in 3rd place. And then James Cood was in Group 2, as was Tecmo Bo, and he ends up.
Phil's that Green Magic, right? That's his handle. Is that
no? Green Magic is Joseph Moore.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Phil is one of the owners of D-Men Tap. We play there.
Really? Wow.
Every Monday night. I go every other Monday night to play and stream, but yeah, he came up big in that tournament. He was preparing for it, and he did a good job. And, the way the seeds work out, you can end up facing anybody from any group with any team, really. So that's what made it fun and suspenseful.
Would you run it the same way again, like for next year?
Yeah, I mean, if I would run this style again, for sure. I think it was great as far as, people were into the bingo balls, and
that was cool.
The team draft. Like, it was just an extra element to the tournament that other tournaments might not necessarily have. And the fact that the results show that, there's no one from Group 1 in the results at all, that placed in the top 4. So, I wanted people to see that if you're going to come to a tournament and have a shot at beating one of these elite players, this might be the tournament to do it, because they might face off earlier in a round. They're beating up each other in group play, and that's the way it worked out in this one. And Tecmo Bo, he really deserved to win this tournament. He went undefeated. I think he was 7-0. He was in Group 2 with a bunch of really good players. The Shark Watsky, Todd Daniels, and James Kuhn, and he beat all of them, and then he went through the bracket and he took the championship. So, but yeah, I would definitely run it this way again. So the next tournament was another tournament in October, Tecmo Super Bowl tournament, Northeast Tecmo Super Bowl Association, New York, organizer Bad Moon Rising. You got 1st place, Kevin S. That's Tados. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, it might be something like that. Yeah.
He's
good. I played with him used to play with him in online leagues. He was always a solid player.
Yeah, and from what I know, that's he wins tournaments over there in New York or the Northeast. So that's not
the longest crap I've ever. How long did you poop for? Were you pooping or no? Yeah, just kidding.
No, the phone call.
Oh, okay.
Oh, look at this guy, Hollywood. And then 2nd place, Matt Diaz. I'm officially deeming him, even though I've never really talked to him. He's the Buffalo Bills of 2017 when it comes to Tecmo Super Bowl tournaments, and that's not a knock on him.
Yeah,
it's just every time I look for the results, I see Matt Diaz in 2nd place.
Yeah, he's decent.
So that means he's a great player. He's just coming up 1 game short of a championship. And then 3rd place, we got Sean S. Stock Talk, and 4th place, Eric M. Arklanem.
Okay,
that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, all heavyweights in the Tecmo online community there.
And then November 4th, and I think Nick was tuning in. They had a stream. was Tecmo Milwaukee, who's next. And it looked like they had a well over 30 players, and they had some big guns there. Nick, did you check out the stream that they had that day?
I'm trying to remember. There's been so many streams this last month that I can't. All I can remember right now is I remember yours, and then I remember I watched Iowa yesterday for far too long. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to think on the Milwaukee one.
Yeah, so I checked out quite a few games on the Milwaukee one, on and off. So the results of the Milwaukee tournament: Regulator wins first place after, I believe he said in the interview at the end with Ben, a bad taste in his mouth after Chicago. He comes to Milwaukee and he wins the tournament over second place Mort. So Mort, he's been finding his way into the top.
The Road Warrior.
In virtually every tournament that he plays in. And I don't think they had a third, fourth place game, but you had Justin G, who lost to Mort, and then Joey Gatz losing to Regulator. That seems to be the only guy that can beat him at a tournament.
Yeah.
Does run into him. I think Regulator gets the best of him most of the time. But I did see, I saw some of the pool play. I saw Flo beat Regulator. I don't know if that was his only loss.
Really?
The format that they had 9 games of pool play before a single elimination tournament. I kind of like that. I was really questioning whether they would get through it, but it looks like they did because they had like 10 setups. And then Darth Rockman, Ben, he was providing the stream. He did a good job, and he even provided some commentary during bracket play. So
that's. I mean, I would love to do 9 games, but if I brought my buddies there and getting their ass kicked for 9 games, that'd be tough.
Yeah.
Like they would have just said no mas at about 3.
Yeah, it's definitely for the seasoned Tecmo players. Yeah. Maybe that's why they had over 30. We know in Wisconsin they could pull some huge numbers. We've seen that Tundra Bowl. Obviously, Tecmo Madison's the biggest tournament. So they had some great players there. I'm trying to think who else was there. I think of note, Coconuts is a good player. He was there.
The Tundra Bowl, Retro Nathan was there.
Yeah, Retro Nathan was there. He did some commentary with Ben. Week after his baby was born, he got to the tournament. That's
guy's got a set of brass balls.
Yeah, that's a cup of coffee in the big time right there. He helps through to Iowa. That was shocking. But
my wife's far too powerful to pull that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, he showed up. He provided some commentary with Ben later. I thought they did a great job with that. I enjoyed the parts of the stream that I was able to catch. And Regulator, once he got into bracket play, he did look like he was regulated people. The closest game I seen, besides for the one that Flo beat him in pool play, he was playing Mort, and it was a Chiefs-Vikings matchup. And Regulator was Vikings, Mort was the Chiefs. And I think Mort picked the matchup, and he said he picked it because he didn't think Regulator would want the Chiefs after his loss in Chicago, I guess.
Oh.
And Regulator ended up getting the best of them. The score was lopsided. I think it was ended up 20-something to 3. But there was a point in the game where if Mort scored, it would have been a 1-possession game, and there was a goal line stand, and then that was all she wrote. So another great tournament for Regulator. And then we had November 11th. That was yesterday, yeah. Yep. So that was the stream that we were checking out in Iowa. So, Nick, do you got the results for Iowa Tecmo 4?
That Joey Gatz was the winner there. Final game against Kyle the Gamer, who's pretty darn good. He won the Millards Mayhem. He with BJ Tolliver, he threw 100%.
Oh wow!
100% completion. Was just a machine. And then Dot Don. I don't know if you know who Dot Don is.
Yeah, I've heard the name and I've seen him playing. He
came in 3. Now he's the mayor. He's the mayor of his hometown now. So he won a week before. He won the mayor of his hometown and then took 3rd in a Tecmo place. And then I think Justin Peters took 4th. But it was they did a great stream there. I was in and out all day. I had a honeydew list. And in between the honeydew list, I was watching it on my phone. So It was a good time. I was close to getting there. My balls aren't brass enough to get down there.
Yeah, I was a little stretch for me for a 1-day trip. I think within the next year, that's probably all I can do. So I was a little bit out of my range for that. But it looks like they had a great tournament. From what I could see on the stream, they had awesome setup. So they got in a lot of games, and they went to double elimination to determine the winner. And they provided a lot of good games for people to watch. And then we had yesterday, we had the Buffalo NES Sega Olympics.
Was there anything on there? I couldn't catch much online on that. Did he post anything?
Yes, they didn't have a stream or anything. I don't have official numbers on how many people were there. It seems like
I think it was a smaller turnout.
Yeah, Lewis said he got sick, and a couple other people did. But I have some results, and I was interested in this tournament because they were doing something a little bit different. They weren't just going for straight Tecmo or straight NBA Jam or any of these games. They're actually not only including sports games, which it was heavy in sports, they included some platforming games with some interesting challenges, and also Tetris, so one puzzle game.
Yeah.
So this is what I got as far as the results there. So Kevin Cabarillo won first place, and I knew going into it he was going to be the heavy favorite there.
Multi-sport athlete.
Yeah. He might be the best retro sports gaming player out there, and he plays more than just sports games too. But the tournaments he won there, he won the Mario 3 time trial, the NHL 95, that's Nick's game, Street Fighter, Mega Man 2, and then he won Punch-Out. But I've watched his Twitch channel, and he plays it blindfolded.
Jesus, he's like when you went over to like a sleepover at somebody's house, and the older brother that was like in high school just kicking the shit out of you at every game, and you're like 12.
Well, I guess he listens to the sound cues in Tyson, and he could play the game without even looking. He just listens to the sound, and he knows which buttons to press.
That's sound cues.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So he's no surprise. You know? And then second place was Doug W. He got the first place and the gold in Mortal Kombat and Tetris.
Okay.
So he's got some range, Mortal Kombat, Tetris.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's.
And guess who won the Tecmo Super Bowl tournament in the Olympics?
Mort?
Yeah. Mort won it. No surprise there. But the one surprise was that Mort won the RBI baseball.
Oh.
So I didn't know he had any other skills besides Tecmo Super Bowl. I think he's good at other games, but he just has such a passion for Tecmo that he doesn't ask to play anything else.
No, yeah. No, I think it's fun to expand the horizons. Just like that, this next Friday Night Retro is going to be a bunch of more stuff, and I'm only going to have to run one thing, so it'll be fun to do that stuff.
So are you going to run the NBA Jam or the NHL again?
The NHL, I just nixed it. It was just too much. I just want to do one thing and have helpers. So we're going to go big in that, but it looks like there's going to be a bunch of other things going on too, but I'm not going to be running those at all.
Cool. Yeah, the NBA Jam thing was fun. We just talked to Reyan, and I think we could get a lot of people pumped for that for sure.
Yeah.
So there was another tournament, and I wanted to give results on it, but my phone's been giving me trouble. Let me see if I could log in on Facebook on my computer. But there was a tournament, NHL 94 tournament.
Oh, in Edmonton, right?
Yeah. I believe
Troy, I think, sent something. He said he sent something to maybe with you.
Yeah, I have the results here. Just give me a second. I want to report on this for sure. But I think Halefax ran the tournaments. They did not have a stream. I don't know how often.
Got to have a stream now. It's like when a college basketball game isn't on TV, and you're like, "What the fuck, man? You gotta have it."
I know. That's like the expectation. Like, where's this stream at? Because I think people that are interested in this want to watch it, and it's like, it's similar to live sports almost, but
yeah,
nostalgic, retro inspired. Because You're not going to see these players actually play the games anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're all up there in age.
It's sad. I mean, you look at, like, you know, because they're all doing like sports shows now, all our football players, you know, in Tecmo, and they look so old now. I'm like, oh man, we're next.
Yeah, that means we're getting up there for sure. All right, so let's see.
Maybe down at the bottom.
All right, so yeah, here's the tournament results from NHL '94. For the SNES tournament, we got Halifax first, Cliff, which was a local guy, in second. We got Matt Ice Fire in third.
Ooh.
And then the way they do it in NHL '94 is they have guys who are into the SNES version, and guys who are into the Genesis version. So they also had a Genesis tournament. And in the Genesis tournament, they had Jeremy win first, Brian second place, and they didn't have a third place. They had 16 guys in the Super Nintendo tournament and 10 in the Sega, so Super Nintendo actually winning out there.
I heard there's something in Canada, Super Nintendo outdraws Sega in Canada. I think I remember them saying.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Maybe just Nintendo has bigger pull out there in Canada. I don't know the logistics of that.
I think that's why it's harder. I think harder for that when you got to split with consoles and stuff. I think it just complicates things a little bit. Like, I think that's why Tecmo's so good. There's only, you know, Tecmo Super Bowl. It just one game, one console, and it just, you know, more people can identify with it.
Well, that's kind of like NBA Jam TE actual console versions. There's 6 of them, not including handhelds. So there is a possibility of like throwing a all world NBA Jam TE tournament. I have all the games. You know, I'd have to get the 4-player adapters and stuff, but it would be interesting to see who has the greatest range of all the
different. Yeah,
because they all play a little bit different, but it's the same game. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it is. I think at least with they almost have like they're going from like the arcade scripture and they kind of go down from it. And like with like the hockey games, it was just kind of like 2 developers kind of doing their own thing but keeping it close, you know. I think Jam's a little, especially at least with the Sega Super Nintendo. I mean, there's little things, but it's pretty darn close.
That's how the Saturn and the PlayStation ones are. They're pretty much the same game. And then the Jaguar one's out on its own. The 32X version, from what I see, it's more similar to the Jaguar version, but the Jaguar version has its own flavor. So I want to get more streams of the Jaguar one up because there's a whole community that's feverish about the Atari Jaguar. And there's not a ton of games that I love on the Jaguar, although I have about 10 games. But I love NBA Jam TE on that system. So
cool.
More streams going to that. So now we got a few upcoming tournaments that we want to make you guys aware of. And these are the ones coming up still. And for this month and next month, we got the King's Cup. I believe we talked about this on the last month, but it's in Fishkill, New York. It's next weekend. They're saying they need an 18-player minimum or the tournament will be canceled. So if you're in, it seems like there's quite a good Tecmo Super Bowl community up there in the Northeast. So if you guys are around for that tournament.
What state is it?
It's in New York.
Okay, New York. Okay.
Fishkill.
Must be unfamiliar. I'm unfamiliar.
Yeah, they're going fish.
Is that a borough like Bronx?
Yeah, I don't know. I had never heard of Fishkill, but that's pretty cool. And then we got December 2nd. We got Tecmo. What is that? 9. Only the Good Die Young. It's a Madison Major.
Ooh.
Southington, Connecticut. So
that should be they should probably get a good turnout there.
Yeah, not sure what it's like up there in Connecticut. I think I talked to Moore, and he said he's been at that tournament a couple times.
Is he road warring out there? Is he going out there for that one?
I think so. I think he's going out there with his brother, but we'll see. You know, they get out to more tournaments than it seems like anyone. So
yeah, amazing.
And then our last guest, Pete Titterai, he talked about this tournament. I think he's one of the organizers. December 9th. It's called JJ's Burden, and it's in Portland, Oregon.
Oh yeah, he was saying something about that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so they got some guys up there playing. They're trying to get a little tournament scene going, and they're throwing a tournament there. I'm not sure where it's at. There might have been information, but I don't have it written down. But those are the Tecmo Super Bowl tournaments coming up.
That's crazy. It's crazy how many more tournaments there are than just a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think, people are seeing that there's a market for it. Not only that, but you can actually share what you're doing on the internet with the stream and, people talking about it. And then like what we're doing now, every month we report on the tournament. So that's kind of cool. So you get extra recognition for the, the tournaments. And we're paying attention to it, not because we just want to report it, but we're actually interested in the players and how they play and different.
Well, it's so crazy. So like yesterday, I'm like clearing out brush, like we got trees that have fallen. I was like, man, I wish the stream just had audio, so like they were like, so I could just listen to it while I'm like moving brush. I'm like, what a fucking nerd am I? I'm like, I want to hear commentary on the Tecmo tournament.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, we might get to the point where commentary is going to be expected.
Yeah.
On the streams.
Well, it is. I mean, the streams are getting nice. Like, I know even on our Segathon streams are pretty much Lord of the Flies. I just put up a camera and we just watch every shit hit the fan. But people want like stuff on the side and scores and people emceeing it. If you really want people to watch it,
Yeah. I think at the very least you just need the game up there and someone talking about it.
Yeah, you do need somebody to talk about. Like you had a. I didn't catch the first guy that got hooked, the Andrew Dice Clay guy, but the second guy that was doing your stream was doing really well. I thought he, and he didn't seem like he knew a ton about Tecmo, but he did really well.
Yeah, that's my friend Ben. He's a more of a fighting game player.
Okay.
So he knows about the live streaming at a higher level than what we're seeing in the retro sports game.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because he watches all the Street Fighter ones and he goes to Evo and they have high quality stuff.
Yeah.
The Street Fighter tournaments have been on ESPN before.
Wow.
So yeah, he's been soaking up that for quite some time. So to him, it was just easy to go on there and start talking. But yeah, my friend Chris was on there first, and he was just having a good time talking a lot of shit. So
yeah,
there'll be some funny clips I'll upload from him, but there's a lot I got to cut out because it was too much. I wasn't expecting the backlash, but it's not something I want to deal with at the time of the tournament. But
oh yeah, no, you had too much going on.
It was all in good fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
totally.
But so there might come a time. And like you said, you're like, I wish there was someone commentating the whole time so I could follow what's going on.
Yeah.
With the ones that are just the game audio, you really have to be looking at it to even know what's happening. And you have to look at the chat too, because basically if there's not someone in the chat watching it the whole time, it's hard to follow what's going on. Because like I'm asking questions, and then like someone like Brewdog who's watching it will be like, hey, this guy's playing this guy, or he's not eliminated yet. So without someone doing that too, it's tough to follow. So
the only bad thing about the chat log is, at least on my phone, the chat comes like a split second before the play. So I'll see like, oh, nice play, and then I'll see the completion or whatever.
I was noticing that for a little while too, where I was seeing stuff in the chat before it actually happened on the screen. So. But yeah, I think that pretty much does it for tonight. Unless you got anything else you want to talk about, Nick.
No, this is good. This is good. The jam book thing was awesome. That's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, Reyan's really knowledgeable about it. He's going to continue learning more about NBA Jam. I thought I was a person who knew more about NBA Jam than any average dude off the street, but Reyan seems to really know it well. And he seems to be the perfect guy to write that book.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I'm sure I've said it a couple times, but everybody watching the Big Madison tournament, we got the jam, and it's going to be really huge on Saturday. So, April, I can't even remember the date right now. April 7th. What is it? Do you remember what Tecmo Madison is this year?
I think you're right about the date. I think it's it's either 6th, 7th, or 7th, 8th.
Yeah, something like that. So clear the schedule.
Yes, and then you said you were reporting numbers. I think you told me about like how many there were last year, and you're expecting.
Yeah, we had 68 players last year playing, and we're just because from what we can find, it's the largest tournament we ever saw. And I think next year will be bigger, and there'll be more than me just crying into a bunch of brackets for running it. So it'll be a really smooth one, and we'll have some things. I'm still debating. There's a code where you can put in where you can have your full rosters, and because that injury thing is so big, like you can just cripple one of the players, and I think that might taint a little bit when we get into high intense play, where it's just basically, kicking the crap out of players.
Honestly, my partner's sitting right here next to me. I think that's why we lost. I don't think I've ever been pushed that much in NBA until I played Kevin and Ryan.
Yeah.
And I felt like we had the advantage through 3 quarters, but into that 4th quarter, we had 2 guys with over 10 injuries.
Oh, yeah.
So one of us had to use a guy that was depleted, and I think Matt used it, but he couldn't do anything. He was running so slow. Like we lost maybe by like 3 points, but if that didn't happen, I feel like we could have won. But that I never thought about getting pushed that much, because usually we're doing the pushing and dominating. So to go up against someone who's equal, it played a huge factor.
Do you guys know if like 1 push equals 1 injury? If you fall, is that like an injury? Do you know if there's a sliding scale on that? Have you looked into that?
I'm pretty sure if you just get pushed, that's an injury. It's like the push connects.
And then so that's 1. So then once you hit 10, you're
once you hit 10, that's when you start to really feel sluggish.
Yeah.
And your speed rating goes down to like a 1, even if you're fast like 8. So
yeah, and then you're just fishing a barrel. You're just fishing a barrel. You can't do anything.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. That's why I talked about NBA Showtime, where that balances it out, where you got fouls, so you can't, like, guys who master the push, all of a sudden they have a tremendous advantage, because not only are they pushing and stealing the ball, but now the other players can't even move because they got pushed so much.
And then pushing defense, it's hard to line up and push, when the guy is trying to get away. Like, it's not, there's a definite skill to just even the push to hit it, because you got to kind of go ahead of the person. And
it's a timing thing for sure. Yeah. It's not like a quick one press. You gotta like line it up and then hit it.
Yeah, it's not like checking in like the NHL series where all you got to do is mash C.
That's why I almost wonder if the original Jam is better for tournaments, but I don't know. We'll see. There's not really a mature market for it.
Yeah.
Because the original Jam does not have that issue where there's any player slowdown. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think it'll be awesome though. I think in the end of the day, it'll be good. It'll be good.
It's all in good fun, and especially a game that's so good played with a teammate.
Yeah, and that's the funnest part about it, is having 4 people. And the best part is when I just love that when the team disintegrates, when you're yelling at your teammate for fucking up. That's the best.
Well, I always had my one friend Anthony growing up. He would get so pissed if I beat him in a video game. I never wanted to play against him. So we just always played on the same team, even if we were playing the computer.
Yeah.
Like if I was beating him, you just shut the system off, punching the screen. I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy. I'm not going through this every time.
That was fun to watch, though.
Yeah, fun to watch, but not fun to be part of.
How long is that guy in prison for now?
Oh no, my friend Anthony, he actually passed early, but all-time friend.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but he was a route playing video games with. So
fun.
But he always had to be on my team, not against me.
Yeah, no, I hear you there.
So, but yeah, guys, thanks for checking this out. Reyan on Twitter is at NBA Jam Book, I believe. Nick's a big time Twitter guy, more so than YouTube. I think on YouTube he just has a couple little quick videos.
Yeah. I got nothing. All my power's in Twitter.
Yeah.
Power.
And you're just at Segathon on Twitter?
Yep, at Segathon on Twitter.
And then
Bus.
if you guys like what you see here, we'll continue to do this every month for you. Subscribe to the channel. My brother's got a couple things going on.
Yeah, you can find me here more reliably than on my own. So we'll just stay on here.
Cool.
All right. So thanks a lot, Nick, for staying on late with us. And we'll see you next month in December.
All right.
Good night.
Night.